Well, greetings to everyone, and welcome to today's educational program, the Agile Toolbox, Preparing Your Team for Success by Zac Jarrard. This is your moderator, Doug Wood, with ASQ's Quality Management Division. So today we have the distinct pleasure of hearing from Zac Jarrard. Please join me in welcoming him. Zac Jarrard is the president of Jarrard Consulting, LLC. The company is dedicated to bringing out the best in people through team building activities and project management training and workshops to improve intergenerational communications at work. Zac holds 3 master's degrees from Park University and several certifications. His research interests include gamification, project management, and working across different generations. Outside of his company, Zac is heavily involved in the community. He's a proud ASQ senior member who serves as past chair of the Kansas City section. Zac is an Eagle Scout who aspires to make the world a better place for everyone. So, without further ado, it's my pleasure to introduce Zac Jarrard. Zac, the floor is yours.
Okay, thank you, Doug. It's good to see everyone tonight. Hope you're having a good week so far, or good day. And with that being said, we'll get started. We'll dive into the Agile Toolbox. So our goals for this session. So I'm hoping that by the end of this session, you'll understand some of the common Agile methodologies that are used in the workplace. I'll share some best practices for leveraging basic Agile tools, and then share some lessons learned that I've acquired over the years from applying different Agile principles and concepts in the workplace. So to start off, you might wonder, well, what is Agile? And you've probably heard of this term within the past 5 or 10 years or so, maybe even 20 years. And it really came to prominence in the 1990s and 2000s because organizations were looking for new and better ways to deliver, in particular, information technology projects. But then as time went on, they found that certain aspects of Agile could be used outside of IT departments. And so, in simple terms, to define Agile, essentially it's a iterative approach to delivery. So if you think of project management on a spectrum, you've got waterfall or traditional project management. So you do all this work and then most or all the values delivered near the end. Then on the other extreme, you've got they call it iterative incremental, or basically an agile approach. So you work on stuff in pieces, so it'd be 2 to 4 week increments at a time, and then over the course of 6 months, a year, 2 years, you finish developing your project. The third approach is kind of a mix of the two, where you have those overarching waterfall goals, but then day to day, you're using an agile approach. And so, when you think about agile, some other terms that come to mind, there's a stronger focus on being able to deliver value quickly, but then also being open to change. And the ultimate goal is to deliver value to your customers, your end users, whoever will be using the product that you're developing. And some of the other key concepts that fall within Agile, the teams or the people working on the product or project are self-organizing. So day to day, they'll figure out how to get work done. They'll work together. They'll hold each other accountable. Feedback is a huge part of it. Pretty much throughout most of the meetings or quote unquote rituals you see within Agile, there's a lot of customer engagement. So asking then user questions, having them test functionality, and then taking that feedback and trying to improve the product in some way. And then engaging the end users, so having them involved throughout that 2 or 4 week or 8 week development cycle is critical. And some of you might have heard of different documents related to introducing Agile. One of the more common ones is the Agile Manifesto that came out in the early 2000s. That provides more detail on defining Agile in general. Another point I should mention, you'll notice that I use the word emphasis. So it's putting more value on speed and adaptability. Some of the traditional stuff that we see, so documenting processes, at a certain point, stopping changes on products, those are still important. But with Agile, it's just putting greater focus on speed, adaptability, flexibility, openness to change. And so within Agile, there are a lot of different approaches that people have. And so I'll start off with talking about some of the common ones that I've seen used in the workplace. The first one is Scrum. This originated in the 1990s, early 2000s. It was created by Ken Schwaber and then Jeff Sutherland. They both developed this. And the whole idea behind Scrum, so you have a product backlog, so you have all this work related to some initiative or project, and you're delivering it in 2 week increments or 2 week sprints, as they would call it. And the nice part about Scrum is that it has roles that are very defined. It's very easy to use. So if you were to pull it out of a box in your workplace, um, it's easy to adapt. It's very scalable. So you can have other departments or other groups use it or use pieces of it. And some of the key roles within a Scrum team. The first one is known as the product owner. So this is the visionary behind a project or product. They often control decisions over resources. They help prioritize the work that's being done. So they have the authority to say, hey, within these 2 weeks, we're going to focus on this aspect of product development. And then in the next 2 weeks, we'll do A, B, C, D, and whatnot. And then the Scrum Master, they're a servant leader. They work with the team to help knock down obstacles. So if you have developers or team members and they're saying, hey, I need um, this person to get back to me about an important item, I need to talk to this manager about said problem, the Scrum Master would be the one to help knock those obstacles down. So that way that team could get back to delivering value at a reasonable pace. And then they also facilitate the Scrum process. So having daily stand-ups, having planning meetings, retrospectives, all of that stuff would fall within what a Scrum Master would do. And then you've got team members. So you might have someone that does quality assurance, you might have developers, you might have someone with marketing. Typically on a Scrum team, you'll have about 4 to 7 people. I would say if you have less than four, then you have, very few people wearing a lot of different hats. If you've got more than seven, you can lose some of the speed and efficiency you have versus using a smaller team. And then next, you've got extreme programming. I would say for this one, this is probably used more in more specific to information technology. So it was created by Kent Beck. So again, from 1990s, early 2000s. And what's interesting is that the sprints are a little bit longer. So instead of having 2 week cycles where you're developing stuff, it can go up to 3 weeks or so, 3, 4 weeks. And for extreme programming, I found it's better. So again, having that small team, but then also one that has a little more experience compared to Scrum. And some of the key roles within extreme programming. So you've got the customer. They're similar to a product owner. They're the one that ultimately the product or project is being developed for, or at least they have the customer's point of view in mind. They control resources for the team. They help set priorities. Then you've got a coach. So this might be an outside consultant or someone that has a lot of experience with extreme programming. They'll help guide the team on how to use this methodology. Then you've got a tracker. Oftentimes, this is a programmer or developer, and they just take on a little bit of additional responsibility. they're in charge of tracking the team's metrics. So looking to see how they're doing. Are they hitting their targets? Are they delivering the amount of value that they thought they would within the 1 to 3 sprints that they commit to? And then you've got programmers or developers. So you've got, and again, these are folks often in information technology departments that are developing software or working on the product or project. And then there's lean software development. So I'm sure a lot of you have probably heard of lean concepts. So this was developed by Toyota. So the goal, you're trying to get the most out of your development time and then getting rid of waste. And then the interesting part, so what sets this apart from other agile methodologies is that there's a lot of focus on developing, they call it a minimum viable product or MVP. And some of the key roles that you'll find within, so lean software development team, you've got your lean master. Again, this is similar to the customer or product owner. They're the one, they provide resources for the team, they help set the vision, they help prioritize the work that's being done. Then you've got a lean project leader, so this is similar to a scrum master. They're helping manage the team from day to day, knocking down obstacles, making sure that deadlines are being met. And then you've got other team members. So this could include developers. You might have someone from marketing, maybe someone on a project team or manufacturing team, maybe communications. And again, the team size is similar, probably about 4 to 7 people for a lean software development team. And then you've got Kanban. So again, this comes from Toyota. So Taichi, I believe it's Ono, developed it. Now, what's interesting about Kanban compared to the other methodologies that I talked about is the delivery cycles are actually longer. So whereas in Scrum, it's often 2 week cycles. With Kanban, it's not uncommon to go for 4 or 6 weeks at a time, or even 2 or 3 months if you have enough work planned out ahead of time. And I would say similar to lean software development. So your goal, you're trying to reduce waste, but in Kanban, there's a big emphasis on work in progress. And so you've got work that's not started, you have stuff that's being worked on, or perhaps it's somewhere kind of in between not started and done. And then generally after work in progress, you've got done. Maybe there's a quality check or whatnot that happens afterward. But in most Kanban teams, the goal is to do as much as you can to minimize the work in progress. Because the concern from this methodology's viewpoint is if you have items that are stuck in progress for too long, then eventually, let's say like 2 or 4 weeks later, the requirements might change, and then you'll have to rework that item. So again, getting stuff from to do to done is a big emphasis. And some of the key roles that I found within Kanban teams, you've got your service request manager. So they're the one, they're generally working with the customer, helping identify needs that the team will work on. Then you've got your delivery manager. This is oftentimes similar to a project manager, and they're the one that they help take what the customer needs are and turn those into product or project requirements for the team to work on. And then oftentimes they're managing the day-to-day tasks that the team is working on. And then you've got your team members, kind of similar to the other methodologies, and a small team of about 4 to 7. Um, what I also think is interesting about Kanban, there was a person I met years ago at a project management conference, and they told me that their company used Kanban across their whole enterprise. So they had their strategic plan in a Kanban board, and they had pieces of it broke out into another board, and then more boards broken out, and they had it all lined up so that way you could go from the strategic plan at the 10,000-foot level all the way down to what individual teams were doing, which I thought was really interesting. Okay, so now that we've looked at some common agile methodologies, let's look at a few tools that are common among the different methodologies. So one of them, interesting enough, is stories. And all of us throughout pretty much all of our lives grew up hearing stories from different people. And in the context of Agile, this helps share what end users are looking for from a product or a project or whatever is being developed, so that desired outcome they have. And another aspect of stories, it helps pull together the persona. So it's who is receiving the value or who the ultimate end user is, the functionality. So what are the items being delivered to that end user, and then the value. And the value piece is the why. So you have this person, you have some functionality you're developing. How is it going to ultimately benefit them, or what will they use it for? And I think one of the nice parts about using this framework is it can help break down really broad tasks into more smaller, manageable tasks for a team. And I have a few examples here of stories. So looking at one more from a business point of view. So as a customer, um, I want an app, so some kind of device on a mobile phone or tablet to help manage money. So it might be someone that, um, they work with a bank or whatnot, or they're a customer to a bank or a credit union. Looking at higher education, so you've got a student, they want a degree plan of some kind, so that way they can be able to enroll. They'll enroll in the right courses so they can be on track to graduate. And then looking at government, there's a citizen, they want to be able to recycle so they can be eco-friendly. Maybe they're concerned about climate change and wanting to do their part to help mitigate it. So these are a few examples, but I want to encourage all of you that are here, or if you're watching this recording, um, I want you to take a second, think about this framework here. So and it could be some person or persona, I want, so, and that'd be some kind of functionality, and then to be able to do what or to deliver what value. So go on ahead, take a few minutes. If you're watching the recording, you can jot down some examples of stories, but for everyone here, feel free to, I'd encourage you to put a few examples of a story in the chat, and feel free, I know a lot of us work at different places from across the world. Think of a story that's applicable to the work you're doing right now, or it could even be ASQ as a whole. Okay, so I'll give everyone about a minute or two. Again, feel free to experiment with the story format. I'd love to see what some of you come up with for your agile stories.
Zach, you're watching the chat to see if anything comes in.
See. Actually, I don't think I can
Oh,
see the
okay.
chat. Do
Well,
you see any?
I'm watching it. I don't see anything yet. So sometimes it takes people a minute to get their thoughts straight and post it in there.
No, that's fine. Well, and especially if you haven't used this a lot, what's interesting with stories, it's a different way to think about an end user experience. Sometimes you have people come and they're like, well, I want this or I want that. And having this framework within Agile helps provide a more holistic picture of what person wants. Okay, interesting. So workforce director. Okay, so someone said I want an app that'll help me plan my retirement. So you might add to that as a future retiree. That would be good. Okay, there's one about banks. Decrease customer complaints. So you could have something that could say, as a quality manager, I want to reduce customer complaints, so I can free up my staff or my team to work on other tasks, or so I can meet my goals for the month. Okay. Doug, do you see any other stories? Okay, I saw one about job seeker. That's good. Okay, sharing best practices. New hire. Okay, so modify products. Okay, that's good. Some more about quality. So something else to bear in mind as you're thinking about stories, when you look at some of these, you might think, well, these are really big. Even with the example I've got here, about the student. So the example of developing a degree plan, there could be other stories that fall under that. And oftentimes in Agile, you have some stories that are so big, they call it an epic. So you've got one big story, and then you can break it down into different pieces. So you've got your epic, and then you've got your, I believe they call it iteration, and then you've got kind of another sub-level of stories under that. So keep that in mind, that if you're developing some stories and they're really broad, oftentimes you can develop stories under that that help provide more detail. And that's okay. And again, when you're developing your product backlog, so your list of all the stuff you're working on, or requests, um, all those stories will go there, and then you can work with your team or your product owner or your customer or whoever to prioritize them. So awesome. Well, thanks everyone for creating some stories. Hopefully you found this to be helpful when thinking about stories in Agile, and some benefits. And again, I'm hoping from your time practicing, you saw some of this. You're really thinking about the end users, and oftentimes within the different Agile methodologies, um, from time to time they'll host story writing workshops. So they'll bring their team in, they'll bring uh, developers in, customers, and they'll spend an hour, 2 hours, half a day going through the activity we just did, where they're writing out stories and then they're gathering all those to put in the backlog, so the list of all the requests that the team might end up working on. The other benefit too is having stories can help document work requests that you might get, or requests for features or functionality, or new ways to deliver value. And then it helps with thinking about the end state, or where you're trying to go. The example of the customer, they want to use the app to manage their money. That's the end goal that you're trying to work towards. So all the subtasks within that story should help you be able to achieve that goal. And it's a lot easier to imagine that versus if I came to you and said, "Hey, I want you to help develop a money management app." You could develop an app like that, but then it might not really help a customer. It might only achieve kind of part of that picture you're trying to get to. And then another tool within Agile is Kanban boards. And so with the Kanban board, it can help to see your workflow. And oftentimes with a simple board, you've got your to-do items. So it's stories or work that hasn't been started, but your team's committed to deliver it within the next 2 to 4 weeks or even 8 weeks. And then you've got in progress, so you have items that are being worked on actively. They're not done, but someone's at least started them. And then you've got done, so you have items that have been completed by the team. You might have other steps in there, like you could add a step for gathering requirements, you could add one for testing, but in simple terms, for a Kanban board, you've got to do, in progress, and then done. And it's trying to move stuff from to do to done hopefully very quickly. Kanban boards can help with iteration planning as well, and then you can track your team progress. I think that's one of the huge benefits of using this, and then the agile approach is that it gives management more visibility and also transparency into what's going on. I remember when I started working in this space, having Kanban boards, a manager could come in and be like, oh, okay, so, here's what you're working on in the next 2 weeks, and here's where everything's at. And it just helped give them some peace of mind. Because before using some tools like this, it was a lot harder to really be able to visualize how a team was doing within a certain time period on a project or initiative. You can make a Kanban board in person. The first board that I had, I ended up using poster board. I had painter's tape. We had sticky notes, which are a big part of story development. And so we put this board up. I have markers. I wrote on it. And the next day, there was someone, I think it was from one of the teams at night. They thought that um, that item didn't belong on the wall, so they ended up tearing it down. So I went into work the next day. I had to put it all back up, and then I put a sign that said, "Beware of dog." So that way they would leave it alone for a while. But my point being is that you can use this stuff in person. So if you want to develop a physical Kanban board, you can. I found that using some of the digital tools are really helpful. So Trello is a big tool that I've used a lot. It's very helpful for organizing stuff. There's also Asana. Jira is another tool that's been used for digital Kanban boards. And some of the benefits overall from leveraging these boards. So again, the visibility, the transparency for management, and then even the team to be able to see how they're doing as a whole, being able to hold people accountable. So if you have stories that are in progress, you can have honest conversations with the team about kind of what's getting in the way from finishing those items. And then it's easy to find. So with Trello, you log in, you go on a website, you pull up the board, it's all right there. It's easy for the team to find. Versus digging in emails, going in SharePoint, and going on different sites, going to a lot of different places. They're really scattered. With a Kanban board that's set up appropriately, you have it all in one place, and it's easy for the team to find. And then another tool, so you've got your Agile stories you've put together, you've got your Kanban board where you can see them. Now we've got to put some estimates together for our story. And so Planning Poker, this is actually a game within Agile that people play. And the goal is to estimate how long it'll take to complete a given story. And the goal is to get some kind of consensus from the team. So if you were in person, you'd have everyone sit in a circle. Um, there are actual planning poker cards you can buy. I've seen them on Amazon. There are also digital tools you can use for this as well. So Scrum Time Planning Poker, it's a digital app you can get on your phone or tablet. Scrum Planning Poker, I think, is another one. And so you pick a story and then you go around to each team member and you have them guess how long it'll take to get it done. And you have kind of a common value set that you agree to. So, for example, if you think it takes less than a day, it'd be like 1 point. If it were, 2 to 4 days, maybe 3 points. And then if it was a week or more, it'd be five. So let's go on ahead. Why don't we go through a round or two of this just for fun for this event. And again, if you're watching the recording, feel free, you can work through this as well. Um, so I want everyone to think about how long do you think it takes to organize and put together a webinar for QMD? So feel free to take a minute and then I'd be interested to see, go on ahead and post your estimate in the chat. Do you think it takes maybe an hour? Does it take maybe a couple days, a month? Does it take a year? Okay, I'm seeing a lot of interesting answers. So 2 weeks. A lot of people say a week. We've got several months. Okay, 12 hours total.
Zach,
Interesting.
let me know if you want me to tell them the actual answer.
Sure, yeah, go on ahead. Yeah.
Okay. So, how long does it take to plan these? Um, would you believe 14 weeks?
Wow. That's a lot longer than I thought. I would have guessed maybe towards 6 weeks or so.
Well, you can do it in 6 weeks. The problem is you won't be able to get word out to people. It's the advertising that takes so long. You need to get word out, and it's just very slow to tell people about these things.
So let me ask you this. So if all you were doing was working on a QMD webinar, let's say you didn't have any other work, how many hours do you think that would be roughly?
I mean the physical time of me to do it. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Probably about 2 hours. But then again, I've been doing this for 8 years, so yeah.
Okay, interesting.
It, it, it,
Okay.
it's really, there's calendar time and there's work time. We all know that those are different things.
Okay. No, I just wanted to ask that because I saw some people putting hours in and I think they thought it was just the number of hours, and then some people put weeks or months, and I think they were thinking of it holistically. So, and again, this is the point of playing planning poker is that you see all these different dynamics play out, and then what you really want to look for is when people give really strange answers. So, for example, I think the longest time I saw was 6 months from someone. So if we were actually playing this in person or let's say online, we would stop and say, well, hey, why did you say 6 months? And the reason being is that that answer is an outlier, and it could suggest to the rest of the team that maybe this story we're thinking about will take longer than we realize. And so we would go through one round just like we did, and then we would do it maybe another time or two, and the goal is that by doing that, we'll get closer to a consensus. So by hearing those kind of extreme answers, we'll get a more realistic idea of how long it'll take to deliver that work. Let's do another example. So um, most of us here have heard of the World Conference on Quality and Improvement. Um, some of us have presented at it. I'm curious, how long do some of you think it would take to develop a presentation for the World Conference? And again, feel free to put your thoughts in the chat. Maybe it's a couple hours, maybe it's a couple weeks. Um, Maybe some people think it's a few months. Okay, without knowing the content and if it's interactive. I would just imagine it's developing a presentation in general. Okay, 2 to 4 weeks. Okay, 5 hours. Interesting. Okay, Doug, do you have any thoughts on this? I know you've presented the World Conference a couple times.
Yeah, I guess it really depends on whether it's a topic that I know well. In that case, I might lean a little bit more towards, hours. But if it's a topic that I'm developing where I have to do the research and pull together references and then it can be a couple of months because you got to dig into it and make sure that you're covering the ground well. So Yeah,
Interesting. Well, thanks for sharing.
yep.
Again, thanks everyone for sharing. These were just a few examples of planning poker. So some of the benefits I hope you saw from this, from doing planning poker. So if you go through a couple rounds, you can get a consensus on estimates. So the team will have a shared understanding of how long it takes to deliver a story. You'll get to improve your future estimates. And then this will help with your iteration planning. So as you're planning your 2 to 4 week cycles, you'll have a good idea of what will be able to be delivered kind of within that time frame. And then you're not over or under committing to work items. Okay, so I shared a couple tools. So now we can kind of imagine what it's like to work within, let's say that 2 week cycle. So oftentimes you'll have a daily stand up that happens. It's usually once per work day throughout the week. And the goal is to bring the team together for 10 to 15 minutes and have everyone briefly share what they're working on for the day. It's a way to hold people accountable, but more importantly, you want to hear what obstacles people have. And the key questions that you want to go through on this. So the key items they worked on the previous day, or if it's a Monday, what they worked on the last business day, what they'll be working on for the given calendar day, and then are there any obstacles or concerns that they've run into that are new? And some of the benefits from this approach, so it's very quick. If you have people that are trying to make this go too long, then you want to pull them aside afterward and kind of go into more detail about what their issue is. It helps create team accountability, so that way every day everyone knows they have to face the team, they have to talk through whatever items they worked on. So if they didn't work on something, people will know. And sometimes that's okay. People have conflicting priorities or they're out of the office or whatnot. But again, if you have someone, like if it were me as a Scrum Master for several days, if I didn't hear an update on something, eventually I would get really concerned about it and try to capture it. And then you can help track and then resolve obstacles very quickly from doing stand-ups. And then in between that, so just day to day in general, you might run into issues with your stages of team development. So you might have a relatively new team or maybe a more experienced one. So you might have folks that are in that forming to storming stage. They're trying to figure out kind of what to do, or there's some conflict or norming and performing. So you've had your team together for a while. They have a good idea of what needs to get done. What you want to remember is that these team stages can be dynamic. So if you take a person away, if you add a new person, if you pull someone's time on another initiative, you can always regress back to that forming and storming. As much as you can, you want to try to help the team kind of move towards that norming and performing as much as possible. And then it's inevitable you might run into conflict. So the ear method is a good way to help resolve that. So it's express, address, resolve. Express, you have people share, their point of view on what the issue is. Address, you have them share ways they can help resolve the problem. And then resolve is where you work together, ideally, to find a solution. This can help with conflict management, giving everyone a chance to at least feel heard, even if their idea is not implemented or acted upon. And then it helps show respect to your team, so that way they'll want to stay engaged and involved. And some key questions to think about on an agile team, I think, regardless of what position you have. What are ways you can help the team? Obstacles you've run into? And then ultimately, I think it's important for each team member to understand kind of what's in it for them from working on this initiative. And especially for your leaders of your agile team to know that, just so they know kind of what motivates people and how to keep them engaged throughout the whole initiative. And then near the end of your 2 week cycle, um, you for all the agile methodologies, you have some sort of retrospective. And so again, this is getting the team together so they've developed some kind of product or functionality, gives them a chance to reflect on it, helps encourage self-improvement. You can document lessons learned from the team. And a simple tool that I use for this, it's called Start, Stop, Continue. So the start, so that's what do we need to start doing that we're currently not doing. The stop, so what are items we're doing right now that we should not do in the next 2 weeks? And then continue is what are the items going well that we need to keep doing? And the benefits from this approach, you can improve your iterations, can help reduce waste and inefficiency. And then it's important to recognize the items that are working so you keep doing them. And once you do your sprint retrospective and your start, stop, continue, you typically want to find 1 to 2 items that were covered and then try to implement those in your next cycle. And then that way, as you're going along for each cycle, you're gradually getting better and faster, ideally. And then here are a few quick examples. So this first one relates back to estimation, putting agile stories together. I worked on a team. We helped develop a skill for Amazon Alexa. And within that, so I helped gather stories from different stakeholders across the organization. I helped develop a Kanban board. So my initial in-person one, after scaring people away from the dog, we finally turned into a digital board. And I got to help lead our effort to do iteration planning and kind of our long-term and short-term planning on this initiative. Some of the key outcomes, so from developing agile stories, doing proper estimates, we met requirements and oftentimes exceeded them from our end users. We had team and management visibility into what went on for each 2 to 4 weeks we were working on this. And then we were able to plan future cycles. So we could look ahead and be like, hey, here are requests we have. Here's, what's coming up in the next 4 to 6 weeks or 2 months out. So we could be able to pivot some as needed. And then an example of organizing work, so doing daily stand-ups, and also doing some planning poker. There was a lot of frustration around a syllabus system at an organization, and I worked with them to gather end user feedback, create stories for that, bring different stakeholders together. And some of the key outcomes from this, we're able to modernize the syllabi that end users saw. We had end users engaged. We even made a testing group where they would see changes before they were put into production. And then we helped improve the overall experience for everyone. It was a really great initiative to be a part of. And then the third one, so team management and then doing retrospectives. There was a innovative course I helped develop using Minecraft several years ago. As we grew this initiative, we would explore opportunities to work with other departments or external organizations. And throughout this, I helped monitor our resource usage, so the team members we had, also the risks, so doing a SWOT analysis. And from doing this and having an agile or iterative approach, we grew our course over time. We got better as we went along. We engaged a whole lot of different people, students, K-12 students, external organizations, had some external marketing, and then we document our lessons learned over 5 years. So each year we would document all of our lessons, we would do SWOT analysis, and people were surprised. Some people felt we did more planning than some of the other bigger initiatives that had way more money at the time. And this picture here on the right kind of encapsulates all the work. So this is a picture of a iconic building in Minecraft that a group of students created. This was about 3.5 years ago, so it was a pretty cool memory. But again, it goes to show with this agile approach, we're able to deliver that end user value and oftentimes exceed it in ways that we couldn't even imagine. And so looking back from working in this space, from using agile tools and different methodologies, when you think about putting estimates together and stories, it's important to take time to review your backlog so that the list of all the items you have that people have requested, you want to be able to prioritize those. You want to dig a little deeper. So once you develop a story, think about the subtasks that you need to be able to deliver those. And then it's really important, as you saw when we played planning poker together, to think about a common value for doing estimates. So again, your stories that are easy to do, medium, or hard, or might take a lot of time. And then for organizing work, simplicity is key. For Kanban boards, if you can make a digital one, those are really helpful. And then, that way you won't have the fear of someone accidentally tearing it down. And then talk to your team, see what works for them. Are there certain times of the day where stand-ups are better? Are there some days where maybe you cancel it, or maybe you schedule a meeting afterward to address issues? Um, do you move certain things around? What you'll find is that so Scrum, for example, it's very out of the box, almost a little rigid, but in a good way. You want to find how you can customize aspects of that to your organization, so that way they'll be able to adopt it for the long term. And then for team management, it's really important if people report obstacles, do what you can to help solve them. Recognize what's going well, celebrate your wins or your victories along the way. And then, as much as you can, sometimes working on agile teams can be intense. So, recognizing that people need time off, they need some work-life balance. That'll help with sustaining your high-performing team over the long run. And then here's some other resources I found within this space that if you'd like to learn more about it, and again, I'm happy to share links for this or some other videos if you're interested. So the article on embracing agile is pretty good. Um, for most of this presentation, I've talked about agile at a team level. There are also a few agile methodologies that talk about it at a more enterprise level. And so the Scaling Agile article talks about more agile at an enterprise level versus a team level. And then the article from Atlassian, Was Agile, provides a great overview. Some books. So the book about Scrum by Jeff and JJ Sutherland's really good. So Doug didn't mention this, but one of the certifications I hold is the Agile Certified Practitioner from PMI. I found that they provide a really good overview of Agile and different methodologies. So their exam prep book is really good. And then, believe it or not, you might be surprised by this, but the current Certified Manager of Quality Organizational Excellence Handbook actually has a couple sections in it on iterative project management. So I definitely recommend that you check it out. And one of the people on here happens to be the co-editor of that. So hopefully you know him by now. And also Dr. Furterer. Oh, but again, so I'm hoping from attending this session or watching this recording, you'll walk away understanding more about common agile methodologies used in the workplace. I talked about several agile tools, and honestly, you could probably use some of them without having a Scrum team or a formal Kanban team at work. And then I shared a few examples from my experience, and we also had fun planning poker and developing some stories. So hopefully all of you find that to be applicable, regardless of where you're at today. And then here's my contact information. I do want to take a second and give a big thank you to Doug and the Quality Management Division. As you saw, we did Planning Poker. It takes a lot of time to put these together. It's truly a world-class webinar program they have, so big thanks to their team. Also to all the people that got to attend today. And yeah, just want to thank all of you. It's been a
Yeah.
lot of fun getting to come back.
Well, thanks, Zach. We're gonna do questions now. I'm going to stop the video though, stop the recording because we the questions don't work well in a recording format, so we will